I have these two quadrilaterals, and we know that A, B, C, D is congruent to E, F, G, H. Okay? Because of the way this is written, that helps me identify where the corresponding parts are. All right? And they're going to ask you just to identify corresponding parts at times. How many different sides do we have that are corresponding? 4 sets, right? How many different pairs of angles are corresponding? 4. Okay? So if I look at segment CD, what is corresponding with segment CD? Segment GH. What's corresponding with angle A? Make sure we label things properly. Angle E. Okay? Now if you notice, A is the first letter of this name, and E is the first letter of this name, so they are corresponding. Okay? And CD are these last two, so GH are those last two, they are corresponding. Okay?
Are we writing all this?
Yeah, you should be writing this down. I'll pause and let you get caught up. All right, now we have to understand what it means to be congruent. Okay? Give myself a little more room here. What it means to be congruent. So, if we say two figures are congruent, John, you need to move back to your seat. If we say two figures are congruent, then that means that all corresponding parts are congruent. All corresponding parts are congruent. If these two figures are congruent, that means all the corresponding parts are congruent. We spent a minute identifying congruent segments and a pair of congruent angles. Okay? And so now what we want to do is identify all of them so that we can say which angles and which sides are congruent. Okay? And we already said to begin with that there were how many pairs of angles? 4. How many pairs of sides? 4. And so this little mark here, this little arrow that I use just to show some kind of relationship, can be replaced with a congruent symbol. Because we're told these two figures are congruent, then that means that all these corresponding parts are congruent.
I'm going to go down.
Okay, that's good. All right, so let's list the rest of them. Oops, let me move this up so you can see the picture. Let's list the rest of our corresponding parts. What's that? Your choice. We want to list all of them, so do you have one? Okay, so how do we label that? Angle B, congruent to angle F. Okay? Another pair. Angle C and angle G. Okay? Now you notice C is the third letter in the name and G is the third letter in the name. Right? C and G are the third letter, so we can use that information to help us identify these parts. Okay? What is the last angle?
Okay.
D and
H.
H, okay? So angle D congruent to angle H. Alright? Now let's go to the segments. The segment's a little harder to do without drawing the picture, because this segment right here, AC, is not part of the blue picture, is it? And so we don't want to just randomly match up letters here and call them sides, because they may not be sides. For example, segment DB is not part of that figure either, was it? It's a diagonal. So we don't want to confuse those issues. So we'll look at the pictures. We already said C, D, and GH. What other sides are congruent? What do you have, Tyler? Okay, tell me the next one then. Now, I'll set that on my desk and then you can follow along better. Segment AD is congruent to segment. Okay, hey, quiet please. Bree, say it again. Segment AD and segment EH. Listen, at first, I think you said at first HE, and then she realized that's not in the proper order. She went AD first, so she needs to go EH. And then she corrected that. And that is the proper thing to do. Now, Mr. Dew and I are both fairly lenient on accepting it as HE instead of EH, but the reality is we want you to get used to seeing things and saying them in the proper order. Okay? So you did that very well. What is one more? There's only two more. Segment BC is congruent to segment
GF or FD.
FG. BC is the middle two, so FG the middle two. Okay? And then the last one? AB, right? So segment AB congruent to segment AB is the first two. EF is the first two over here. Okay? I got a lot of circling and boxing and pictures in here, but if you use the letters in the order they give them to you, it helps you to put things in the proper order. Okay? Alright. The next rule, there's only one more rule. And then you've got lots of time to work. If I had this triangle and this triangle, and not trying to trick anybody by rotating them around or changing the look at all. So here's my two triangles. All right. If this angle right here is 100, and this angle here is 100, and this angle is, let's say 30. What's this angle here going to be? 50. Why? Because they have to add up to 180. So if this one's 30, what's this angle have to be? 50, right? So what are we getting at? If these two angles in this triangle are congruent to these two angles in this triangle,
And the last one is.
then the last one has to be congruent, and that's our theorem. If two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of another triangle, then the third angles must be congruent. Okay? Pause that so you record.
Then you gotta use your other finger. What if I'm trying
Okay, the homework today,
If I'm holding this is perfect.
Yeah, I know.
now number 28 is a little bit different. Okay? And I know that we need to do a lot of that together in number 28, but to begin with, I want you to look at it and do the best you can on it. Here's the problem has like 6 steps to it. 7, sorry. 7 steps to it, and they're labeled A, D, E, F, G. I guess that's it, right? And they have statements here. And they have a picture. Stop talking. They have a picture, and they want you to tell why we know these are true.
Because you're trying.
Yeah, and because they are is not a good enough reason. So we have to come up with a reason.
Why we know
That
they're true.
reason could be a theorem, it could be a postulate, it could be some definitions.
We know they're true.
Okay.
You just told us.
So anyway, sometimes they're addition property or they're just different properties, okay? So anyway, they're going to have some statements. I just want you to try these. I don't expect perfection out of it by any means, but I want you to try them, and then either at the end of class or first thing tomorrow, we'll look at it together and go through it. Okay? So there's your assignment, 1 through 28 all, and write the Y's for all of these at number 28.
Give me ideas. No, that's too hard.
That would be